بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد tonight inshallah we'll be starting the book مذكرة الحديث النبوي في العقيدة والاتباع, and this is from the mu'allafat of Shaykh Rabee ibn Hadi, who is considered or who is one of the scholars in Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara who specializes in the science of hadith. And as we know, كما قال الشيخ الألباني كل محدث فقيه, that every scholar of hadith is a faqih, so he has knowledge and understanding of affairs of fiqh, but he is mutakhassis in hadith. And Shaykh Rabee is one of the scholars today that is loved by Ahlul Sunnah and hated by the people of innovation and desires, due to him establishing that which is considered a communal obligation from al-Rad al-Mukhalif, from refuting those that oppose the Quran and the Sunnah. And as a result of this, refuting groups and refuting specific individuals, you find him being hated by the people of innovation, but being loved by Ahlul Sunnah for this obligation that he has embarked upon, that has removed the burden off of other scholars. This particular book that we're going through was written over 30 years ago, and it was a part of the curriculum of Jamiatul Islamiyya in Medina, the Islamic University in Medina. This book was a part of the curriculum. So the students of knowledge at this particular university, they were studying these ahaadith and memorizing these ahaadith and obtaining an understanding of the ahaadith that are contained therein. And there are approximately 23 hadith, and inshallah we'll try to deal with each hadith in each setting. So hopefully after 23 sittings we'll be finished with the book, inshallah. And of course we won't be able to take all the benefits of each hadith, but we're going to try to deal with some of the main benefits. So the Shaykh, he states al-hadith al-awwal, or the first hadith, which is dubbed by the scholars minhaj ad-da'wa ila Allah, the methodology in calling to Allah, inviting others to the worship of Allah wa ta'ala. And this particular narration that the Shaykh is going to bring has several expressions, and the expression that I memorized is slightly different than the expression that's in the book, but we'll read from the book verbatim, inshallah. And this hadith is upon the authority of Ibn Abbas, in which he stated, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لما بعث معاذا إلى اليمن قال. He states, he being Ibn Abbas, states that when the Prophet ﷺ sent Mu'adh, now he's referring to Mu'adh ibn Jabal, when he sent him to Yemen, and he sent him to Yemen for the purpose of da'wah, calling the people to Islam, then he said to him, إنك تأتي قوم من أهل الكتاب فليكن أول ما تدعوهم إليه شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وفي رواية أخرى إلى أن يوحدوا الله فإنهم أطاعوا لذلك. Before I continue, let me translate that. He states, indeed you are coming to a nation from amongst the people of the book. So let the very first thing you call them to be the testimony that there is no deity worthy of worship in truth except Allah. And in another transmission, he states, and yuwahidullah, that they should single out Allah wa ta'ala. Now there's a portion of the hadith that he didn't mention, وَأَنَّ مُحَمَّدْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. If they obey you in that, فَأَعْلَمْهُمْ أَنَّ اللَّهِ افترض عليهم 5 صلوات في كل يوم وليلة. And if they obey you in that, showing a conditional clause here, you cannot move on from that to the next thing unless this is first established. So if they obey you in that, then inform them that Allah Ta'ala has made binding upon them 5 prayers to be performed daily. فإن أطاعوك في لذلك فأعلمهم أن الله افترض عليهم صدقة تؤخذ من أغنيائهم فترد على فقرائهم. And if they obey you in that, meaning the performance of these 5 daily prayers, then inform them that Allah Ta'ala has made binding upon them sadaqah, that is to be taken to the rich and given to the poor. And fuqara here, we're going to translate this as extremely poor, and we'll see the reason why I'm translating it like that sometime in the class. فإنهم أطاعوا لذلك فإياك وكرائم أموالهم. And if they obey you in that, if they give this sadaqah, then beware from taking from the most valued of their wealth. وَاتَّقِي دَعْوَةَ الْمَظْلُومِ. And fear the supplication of the oppressed. فَإِنَّهُ لَيْسَ بَيْنَهَا وَبَيْنَ اللَّهِ حِجَابٌ. Because there is no veil between it, meaning the supplication of the oppressed, and Allah Azza wa Jal. There is no veil between the two. This particular narration is found in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, likewise in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, in the Sunnah of An-Nisa'i, and the Sunan of Ibn Majah, and likewise the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. So there's no doubt that this particular narration is an acceptable narration. Hadithun maqbulun, and an established proof in the religion. Now Shaykh Rabee, he has this section broken down. First he deals with the Rawi, which is Ibn Abbas. Then he deals with some mufradat, or some words that we'll probably skip because that's only for the benefit of those that are speaking Arabic, and I believe all the words in this are clear, except one. We'll deal with one. And then he has the general meaning of the hadith. He has the section, the general meaning of the hadith, and then how we benefit from the hadith. He does every hadith like that. Each section is exactly like that. So we begin with the narrator of the hadith. The Shaykh, he states, Abdullah ibn Abbas, well, he states he is Abdullah ibn Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib al-Hashimi ibn Rasulullah. So he's giving us the lineage of the narrator. He's telling us that he is Abdullah ibn Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib. Ibn being the son of Abbas, Abdullah the son of Abbas, who is the son, Abbas being the son of Abdul Muttalib. Alright? So this is showing that the Ibn Abbas is from the lineage, from the family of the Prophet ﷺ. And then he goes on to state, he is the son of the paternal uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. He's the son of the paternal uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, making him what to the Prophet ﷺ? His cousin. Right. Al-Habr al-Bahr li sa'ati ilmihi wa huwa ahad al-mukthirin min al-sahaba wa ahad al-ubadala min fuqaha al-sahaba mata sana 68. Al-Abadila. Barakallahu fiqh. And he is a great scholar due to his vast knowledge. And he is one of what they call the mukthirin min al-sahaba, meaning he is one of the companions that narrated an abundance of hadith. He is one of the companions that narrated an abundance of hadith. And with the scholars of hadith, the mukhtirun are 7. The mukhtirun are 7. Ibn Abbas being from amongst them. The others are Abu Huraira, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Ibn Umar, Jabir ibn Abdullah, Anas ibn Malik, and Aisha. These are considered the Muqtirun from amongst the Sahaba. They narrated well over 1,000 hadith. They narrated much more than 1,000 hadith. That's what is intended by Muqtirin or Muqtirun. And then it states, وَهُوَ أَحَدُ الْعَبَادِلَةِ مِنْ فُقَهَاءِ الصَّحَابَةِ. That he is, Abadillah is referring to the Abdullahs, the people that were named Abdullah.
Plural of Abdullah.
From the fuqaha of the companions. The fuqaha meaning the scholars of fiqh. And the Abadillah with the muhaddithin are four.
Right.
That is Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Zubair, and Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. Right, these four. They're from the Abadillah min fuqaha as-sahaba. Now in the Hanafiya, they have a slightly different lineup. They state as Abdullah ibn Abbas, wa ibn Mas'ud, wa ibn Umar.
Oh, yeah. Could be true.
Right?
Yeah.
And ibn Zubair, if I'm not mistaken, ibn Zubair as well.
I think Abdullah ibn Zubair.
They just dropped Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. At any rate, the Shaykh, he states that Ibn Abbas, he passed away 68 years after the Hijrah. After the Hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ. That was a year in which he passed away. وَكَانَ مَوْتُهُ بِالطَّائِفِ. And his death, he died in Ta'if. However, the scholars differ on the year exactly. The Shaykh obviously he holds the position that it was 68 years after the Hijrah, but it's said that it was 69 years after the Hijrah, and some say 70 years after the Hijrah. 70 years after the Hijrah. At any rate, when looking at what was previously mentioned, we see the virtues of Ibn Abbas just from the perspective of knowledge that he holds. As Ibn Abbas narrated from the Prophet ﷺ directly. He narrated from the Prophet ﷺ that which he heard from the Prophet ﷺ directly. Likewise, he narrated from his father, Abbas. And he narrated from his mother, Fadl. And he narrated from his brother, Fadl ibn Abbas. And he narrated from his maternal aunt, Maymuna. And likewise, he narrated from all the Khulafa al-Rashidin, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, he mentions this in his book, Tahdhib wa Tahdhib. So Ibn Abbas, just the Khulafa al-Rashidin, from amongst the companions, these were the most knowledgeable. From amongst the companions, he was narrating from the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. So this shows us the virtues of Ibn Abbas as it relates to the knowledge that he holds. And in fact, we have one of the Abadillah that narrated from him, Abdullah ibn Umar, narrated from Ibn Abbas. And likewise, Abu Umama, two companions. And some of the outstanding from amongst the Tabi'een, Al-Qamah, Ikrimah, Tawus, Mujahid, and others.
Mujahid is a student.
These were mountains from amongst the Tabi'een. Now, there's one, when looking at the mufradat or the singular words that are found in this particular narration, there's one I want to bring to the attention of the brothers and however many sisters that may be present. The statement of the Prophet ﷺ when he says, فَإِنْهُمْ أَطَاعُوكَ لِذَلِكَ فَأَعْلَمْهُمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ افترض عليهم صدقة. The Shaykh, he states, الْمُرَادُ بِهَا الزَّكَاةَ الْمَفْرُوضَةَ. And what is intended by sadaqah here is the third pillar of al-Islam as zakat.
Right.
And Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen, he states as it relates to the Islamic technical definition to az-zakat, it is at-ta'abbud lillah bi-ikhraj juzin wajibin shar'an fi malin mu'ayyin li ta'ifa aw jihatin makhsusa. That it is an act of worship that is devoted to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala by distributing Islamically legislated an Islamically legislated portion, obligated portion of specified wealth to specific classes of people or to specified authorities, meaning those who have been commissioned to collect this sadaqah or the zakat. That is the Islamic technical definition for as zakat. And inshallah, in a future sitting, we'll get the opportunity to take a closer and better look at zakat in a more in-depth manner, inshallah ta'ala. The Shaykh, he begins with the general meanings of this hadith. He says, يبين الحديث الخطوات الواجبة التي يجب أن يسلكها الداعي إلى الله. He says, in this particular narration, there is a clarification for the obligatory steps in which it is mandatory for the caller to Allah to traverse upon, yani when given da'wah. فأول شيء يجب أن يبدأ به هو الدعوة إلى التوحيد وإفراد الله وحده بالعبادة والابتعاد عن الشرك صغيره وكبيره. So the first thing that it becomes, that is binding upon the caller to begin with, as it relates to calling to Allah Ta'ala, is at-tawheed. And tawheed in a general in a definition in which is required or demanded from mankind, ifrad Allah bil ibadah, yani singling out Allah Ta'ala alone as it relates to worship. This is the first thing that the caller should deal with when inviting people to Islam. That they should call to the worship of Allah Ta'ala and being distant from polytheism, however big or small it may be. However big or small it may be. Now, when dealing with this particular point, I want to deal with a very important point as it relates to the caller. There was a reason why the Prophet ﷺ in the beginning, he informed Mu'adh, إِنَّكَ تَأْتِي قَوْمًا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ. Indeed, you will be coming to a nation from amongst the people of the book. And we know the people of the book are the Yahud and the Nasara. Right now, I want to read some statements from Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh from his explanation to the book Kitab al-Tawheed, which eventually we want to end up going through, inshallah. Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh, he states, قال العلماء قوله عليه الصلاة والسلام لمعاذ إنك تأتي قوما من أهل الكتاب فيه توطين وتوطئة للنفس بأن يهيئ نفسه لمناظرتهم. He states that in this particular statement, you are coming to a nation from amongst the people of the book. Encouraging with preparation, preparing oneself, readying oneself to be able to argue with these individuals, the people that he's going to. وقد كان معاذ بن جبل من العلماء بدين الإسلام. And Mu'adh ibn Jabal was considered a scholar as it relates to the deen of Islam. ومن علماء الصحابة, ومن علماء الصحابة, and from the scholars of the companions, May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with all of them. فقال له عليه الصلاة والسلام ذلك ليهيئ نفسه لمناظرتهم ولدعوتهم ثم أمره أن يكون أول ما يدعوهم إليه أن يوحدوا Allah Jalla wa Ala. He states that, so the Prophet ﷺ made the statement to him so that he could ready himself to argue with them and to invite them. And then, then he commanded Mu'adh to start his da'wah with at-tawheed. To start his da'wah with at-tawheed. This is very important when, for us as Muslims, when attempting to give da'wah here in a nation where the majority of people are kuffar. As one of the conditions of the da'i is knowledge. Knowledge of what he's calling the people to. But that is not sufficient. Likewise, the caller should have knowledge of the condition of the people that they're calling.
Right.
And this is why the Prophet ﷺ was informing him, listen, you're coming to a nation from the people of the book, and he started to instruct him on how to deal with them. So, this is very important. Why? Because it's not appropriate for a Muslim to be given da'wah to a Buddhist, for instance, using arguments that he would use on a Christian. Trying to convince a Buddhist that Isa is not the son of Allah.
He don't care.
He's not concerned with that. Or trying to convince a particular denomination in Christianity to leave off a belief that they don't even have. Like the Jehovah's Witness. They don't believe in the Trinity. They don't believe in the third of three. You're trying to, present arguments to call them away from the Trinity where they don't even believe in the Trinity. You have to know the condition of the people in which you give them da'wah to. And this is why that statement of the Prophet ﷺ was very important. So that's the first thing. The Shaykh, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, he's also pointing out, Shaykh Rabee, going back to him, the importance of prioritizing. That there is nothing that is more important for the da'i to begin with. And this is very important because all of us, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, should be calling the kuffar in society to Islam, regardless of this. For those of us that have parents that are not Muslim, or relatives that are not Muslim, even if you're not giving da'wah to everybody in the street that you see, to a certain degree, you have people around you in this society that are not Muslim. And so this particular narration, in which is dubbed methodology of calling to Allah, is showing us that we need to prioritize our da'wah, that we shouldn't begin with anything before we begin with at-tawheed. We shouldn't invite people to Islam by stating, look, the Muslims, we pray 5 times a day. Isn't this good? You should become a Muslim because of that. Or, look, we can have more than one wife. I know you like women, you should accept Islam because of that. And thus forth and so on. These are not reasons why an individual should enter into Islam. وذلك يكون بشهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله. والمقصود بهذه الشهادة أن العبادات بكل أنواعها حق ثابت لله وحده لا يستحق سواه منها شيئا. He says, and that is, with this prioritization that we should have as it relates to da'wah, that is by calling to the testimony that there is no deity worthy of worship and truth except Allah. That should be the first thing that is prioritized, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. And what is intended by this testimony is that worship, al-ibadat, and all of its types, is an established right that is due to Allah Ta'ala alone, and that no one merits or deserves this. No one merits or deserves this. No angel that is brought close to Allah, nor a prophet that was sent by Allah. Not a righteous individual, nor rocks, trees, the sun, nor the moon. None of these things merit worship. Nothing in this dunya, regardless of how magnificent it may seem to the creation, merits worship. For regardless of how magnificent it may be to the creation, it is insignificant when compared to Allah Ta'ala. It is insignificant. فَلَا يُدْعَى إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ وَلَا يُسْتَغَاثُ إِلَّا بِهِ وَلَا يُسْتَعَانُ إِلَّا بِهِ. So no one should be supplicated to except Allah alone. No one's aid in severe times should be sought except Allah Ta'ala's aid. No one's assistance or support should be sought except Allah Ta'ala's assistance. No one should be depended upon. No one should be feared. And there's no one who wants to place his hopes in except Allah Ta'ala. فمن صرف شيئا من هذه العبادات أو غيرها لغير الله فقد أشرك بالله. And so whoever diverts a thing from these acts of worship to other than Allah, then indeed he has associated a partner in worship with Allah. And the Shaykh then quotes the statement of Allah, إِنَّهُ مَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ الْجَنَّةِ وَمَأْوَاهُ النَّارُ وَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِنْ أَنصَارٍ. Indeed, those that associate a partner in worship with Allah, then indeed Allah Ta'ala will prohibit for them paradise. Paradise will be prohibited for them. And their abode will be the fire, and there is no one to aid or help those that are oppressive. Those that are oppressive. Now, the Shaykh, in a nutshell, what the Shaykh is basically stating or pointing out is the foundation of Islam. The foundation of Islam is calling the individual to negate and affirm. Negate worship to all created beings. And affirm worship to the Creator alone. And this important point is seen throughout the Quran. From the statements of Allah Ta'ala, we have in Surah Al-Baqarah, لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها. There is no compulsion in religion, meaning you can't force anybody to accept Islam. The truth has been made clear from falsehood. So whoever disbelieves in that taghut, this is a negation. Any and everything that is worshipped besides Allah is considered a taghut. This is a negation. Whoever disbelieves in that and believes in Allah, then indeed he has grasped the most trustworthy of handholds to the end of the verse. And this verse, I believe, is well known to all of us. And Allah Ta'ala says, وَعَبُدُ اللَّهِ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. And worship Allah, and do not associate a partner in worship with Him. وَعَبُدُ اللَّهِ is that. And worship Allah, this is a verbal command, this is affirming worship to Him alone. Then we have a prohibition, and do not associate a partner in worship with Him. Negating worship to those besides Him. And Allah Ta'ala says, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. هكذا الآية في سورة الجن, صح? And the places of worship belong to Allah, so do not associate a partner in worship with Him. An affirmation and a negation. وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ. Affirming that the places of worship that are affirmed for Allah alone. An affirmation. And then Allah Ta'ala negates them from the places of worship from everyone else. Do not call on, do not supplicate, do not worship anyone besides Him. And Allah Ta'ala says, لَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولٍ أَنْ نِعْبُدُ اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُ الطَّاغُوتَ انظُرُوا. And indeed we have sent to every nation a messenger proclaiming, worship Allah, affirmation, and avoid all false deities, negation. وَاعْبُدُ اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُ الطَّاغُوتَ. Avoid all false deities. Avoid all false deities. So this is a foundation in our deen. Yani the establishment of negating and affirming. Negating worship to created beings and affirming worship to Allah Ta'ala alone. As the statement La ilaha illallah is calling us to do just that. To negate and affirm. And we took where the negation in La ilaha illallah, where the negation and the affirmation is, we took this in the previous book that we just finished. And so for those that benefited, because we don't have time to go back over that right now, those that benefited from that, alhamdulillah. وَلَيْسَ الْمُرَادُ مِنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ مُجَرَّدْ النُّطْقِ بِهَا. And what is not intended by the statement La ilaha illallah is purely stating it. That's not what's intended. لا بد من معرفة معناها والعمل بمقتضاها ولا بد من استكمال شروطها. He states that the Shaykh Rabee, he continues, it's not sufficient to merely state it, but it's incumbent for an individual to understand its meaning and to act in accordance with it. To understand its meaning and to act in accordance with it. And it is incumbent for the individual to complete its conditions. And we stated that this statement has 7 conditions. Anybody who was here for the class remember those conditions?
Condition
of La ilaha illallah. And these are conditions that have to be in place in order for Allah to accept more shahada.
a knowledge.
A knowledge. Al-ilm munafi limada?
Al-jahl.
Al-jahl. The brother said the first condition is knowledge which is not compatible with ignorance. So if a person makes a statement and he's ignorant of what it is he's saying, then this statement will not be accepted by Allah Ta'ala. He has to understand what he's saying. Anyone else? Or any other conditions?
Al-ikhlas.
Al-ikhlas, al-munafi limada? Al-ikhlas. The second one is al-ikhlas.
Sincerity. Yeah?
That is not compatible with what? Ash-shirk. It's not compatible with polytheism. Usually it's translated as sincerity, but there's a little bit more into the definition about al-ikhlas and sincerity. Like Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen, he says, al-ikhlas huwa at-tanqiyah. It is purification. وَالْمُرَادُ بِذَلِكَ أَنَّ الْمَرْءَ يَبْتَغِي بِعِبَادَتِهِ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Right? And what is intended by this purification is that an individual, he wants by his acts of worship the face of Allah Azza wa Jal. وَالْوُصُولِ إِلَى دَارِ كَرَامَتِهِ. And the entering or arriving at paradise, basically. This is what ikhlas is. That is purifying one's heart. It's a purification of the heart. To the point in which when the individual puts forth acts of worship, he's only doing that strictly, solely, or sincerely for Allah. And so that which is not compatible with al-ikhlas is shirk, or polytheism. is, and if it creeps into the one's intention, it nullifies al-ikhlas. This is the second condition. And just to run through them, inshallah, because we took this with evidence in the last class. The third condition is al-yaqeen al-munafi lil-shak. Certainty which is not compatible with doubt. The fourth condition is as-sidq al-munafi lil-kadhib. Truthfulness which is not compatible with lying. You have to be truthful when you're making a statement. The munafiqun used to make the statement and they were lying. Right? That was the fourth, correct?
Yeah.
The fifth is al-mahabba al-munafi lil-kiraha. Love which is not compatible with hate. You have to love this statement and what it entails. You can't hate something from this statement. You cannot hate something from the statement and hope it to be accepted by Allah. The sixth, right? Al-inqiyad al-munafi lit-tark. Willful compliance that is not compatible with non-observance. Willful compliance to the statement and what it entails, what it points to or indicates. And so if you're not observing what it points to or indicates, how is it that this statement that you're making, how does one expect that it will be accepted by Allah Ta'ala? And the last condition is al-qabul or al-qubul, each one is correct. Al-munafi lil-rad. Yani acceptance which is not compatible with rejection. Accepting the statement and not rejecting anything that the statement indicates or points to. These are the 7 conditions that must be in place in order for the statement to be accepted by Allah Ta'ala. Alright? As for it being accepted by a person's shahada being accepted by one of us, then with us all it takes is the utterance. All it takes for the individual is the utterance. We don't go diving into it or try to dive into his heart. What does he really intend by it? Does he really love the statement? And thus forth and so on. Does he really have certainty in what the statement points to? These are actions of the heart. Only Allah knows these things. Only Allah Ta'ala knows these things. So the Shaykh continues, وَالْمَقْصُودُ بِالشَّهَادَةِ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ مَعْرِفَةُ مَعْنَاهَا وَالْأَمْرُ بِمُقْتَضَاهَا. He says, and what is intended by the statement or the testimony, Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, it is having an awareness of its meaning and acting in accordance with it. فَلَيْسَ الْمُرَادْ أَيْضًا مُجَرَّدْ التَّلَفُّظ بِهَا. And what is not intended is just merely uttering it. These statements have meanings that have to be implemented in order for them to be sound. And so the Shaykh, he lists 4 things that are encompassed in the statement of Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. And these are the things that we've taken in the past too. Tasdiquhu fima akhbara. That one has to affirm to be the truth whatever the Prophet ﷺ informs us of. And the Prophet ﷺ informs us of things that have taken place in the past, things that will take place in the future, and he informs us of things that are around us that we cannot see or may be unaware of from angels and jinns and the likes. Likewise, what is encompassed in the statement Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, ta'atuhu fima amara. Obedience to whatever he commands. And this obedience is in the absolute sense. There's no second guessing the commands of the messenger. There's no second guessing them. Obedience to him. وَاجْتِنَابْ مَا نَهَى عَنْهُ وَزَجَرًا. And staying away from that. يعني وَعِبَادَةُ اللَّهِ بِمَا شَرَعَ عَلَى لِسَانِ هَذَا الرَّسُولُ الْكَرِيمُ لَا بِالْهَوَى وَلَا بِالْإِبْتِدَاعِ. He stated, and lastly, worship of Allah by way of that which Allah Ta'ala has legislated upon the tongues of this noble messenger. Meaning, you're not falling into worship of Allah based off your desires or based off innovating. A person comes and says, well, you know, I feel like I'm going to do this because I feel like this is a worthy action that I should be dedicating to Allah. We don't worship Allah like that. We worship Allah based off that which Allah has legislated upon the tongues of the tongue of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
Can you say the one before that?
Questions and answer time, inshallah. I repeated the question and answer, so we got a little time and we just want to knock this out. The Shaykh, he goes into the section of how we benefit from this hadith. And the first benefit that he mentions, and التوحيد هو أساس الإسلام. The first benefit that is derived from this hadith is that Tawheed, it is the foundation of Islam. Now the question would be, why is he saying that? Why is Tawheed the foundation of Islam? Anyone know?
Because without it, you're not worshiping Allah.
No, not best. The whole the religion of Al-Islam is built upon this.
Yeah, ma'rifatullah.
The very statement, La ilaha illallah, is a statement of Tawheed. All the acts of worship that we do, and thus for so on and for the sake of Allah, is built upon this. It's built upon affirming this worship to Him and negating worship to other than Him. This is why he's saying Tawheed is the asas or the foundation of the deen. The very statement you make that you utter to enter into Islam is a statement of Tawheed. It's a statement of Tawheed. The second benefit, أن أهم الأركان بعد التوحيد هو إقامة الصلاة. The most important pillar of the deen after Tawheed is the establishment of the Salah. That's what we take from this hadith. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ in the conditional clause clearly states, فَإِنَّهُمْ أَطَاعُوكَ لِذَلِكَ. If they obey you in that, in the statement, La ilaha illallah, then, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, then inform them, then move on to this next thing.
Fair enough.
Don't move on to anything else outside of that. Move on to this. Right? So much so, this pillar of this, the second pillar, the salah, is so important that if the person abandons the salah, intentionally out of laziness, the scholars differ on if the individual exits Islam as a result of that. And the most correct opinions that is based off the very sound textual evidence is that for the individual that abandons the salah in totality, there is no Islam for him. Now we will see that when we get to the 14th hadith in this book. There will be a more in-depth discussion on that matter. The third benefit taken from this hadith, أن أوجب أركان الإسلام بعد الصلاة هي الزكاة المفروضة وهي من حق المال. The most obligatory pillar of Islam after as-salah is the zakat. That is the most obligatory thing after the salah. And this is very important as brothers and sisters who, again, deal with the kuffar, maybe giving dawah to the kuffar here in the society. What is incumbent upon the Muslim to call that person to after they've accepted Islam? Should we be trying to cram down all the aspects of Islam to that person after they accept Islam? Or is there something that we should be focused on next?
The prayer?
The prayer is the most obligatory thing after they enter into Islam. That's what we should be focused on teaching them, along with trying to give them an in-depth understanding of that Tawheed. These are the two things that should be focused on. Nothing should come before this. And then, of course, the zakat afterwards. The fourth benefit taken from this hadith, أن الإمام هو الذي يتولى قبض I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. قبض. Yeah. قاف باء ضاد قبض قبض الزكاة وصرفها إما بنفسه أو نائبه. That the imam, and what is intended by imam here is not the imam of the masjid or the imam who leads the salah. The imam of the dawla, who is over the Muslim, over the body of the Muslims. That's the ruler. That he is the only one that is commissioned with taking the zakat and distributing it. Or either by himself or by appointing someone to do it in his place. Appointing someone to do it in his place. The fifth benefit that is taken from this hadith, وفي الحديث دليل أنه يكفي إخراج الزكاة في صنف واحد. And this is a issue in which the scholars of fiqh differ on. But in this particular narration, there is evidence that it is sufficient to distribute or issue the zakat to one class from amongst the varying classes of people who merit the zakat. This hadith is a clear proof of that, meaning you don't have to gather up all 8 different types of people in order to give the zakat away. If a poor person is present, you can give them the zakat. That's what's intended by this. But the scholars differ on this. This is why the Shaykh, most likely this is why he put this mas'ala in this benefit, in this, mention this particular benefit. Now one, it's incumbent upon us to understand who are the people that merit or deserve zakat. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala informs us of this in Surah At-Tawbah. إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَةُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا وَالْمُؤَلَّفَاتِ قُلُوبُهُمْ. That the sadaqah, it is only for those that are severely poor or severely impoverished. And then those that are poor but not are severely impoverished. They are those that may make money, but they may not be able to handle some of their hawaish, their needs, because the money they acquire is not a lot. They will be poor but not severely impoverished. And it is for those that have been commissioned to collect it. And it is for those whose hearts are soft or leaning. And this particular group could be kuffar or Muslim. Those that are leaning, when the discussion is brought up, those that are leaning to Islam from amongst the kuffar, you can give them a portion of the zakat if you feel that it will bring them closer to Islam. Likewise, the Muslim that is upon ma'asi, sinfulness, transgression, oppression, bid'ah, and thus forth and so on, if you're giving them nasiha, which we should be giving nasiha to the sinful from amongst us, and you're giving them nasiha bil-rifq wal-lin, with gentleness and ease, and you see that the individual is wavering, your nasiha is affecting him. If you believe that giving him some of the zakat will be a means to win him over, then this can be done as well. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He continues, وَفِي الرِّقَابِ وَالْغَارِمِينَ وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ. He mentions the other 4. Yani for the riqab, yani the slave, you can spend the zakat in manumitting a slave.
Freedom.
Right? The one that owes a debt. People that have debts have a right to the zakat. And what is the amount that they're given? They're given the amount of whatever the debt is, to be able to deal with that. And then Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, He says, and those that are in the path of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, those that are on the path of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, right? And those that are traveling. Now, those that are in the path of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, we have the Ikhwan al-Muslimin, those who are attempting to change the deen. They are from a people of innovation that attempt to change the deen. They add a meaning to fi sabilillah that no one from the Salaf ever stated. They state that fi sabilillah will also enters into that the building of masajid and hospitals and things of this nature, spending the zakat money on these things. Schools and thus forth and so on. They say this is in the path of Allah. This is not correct. Right? And I'm just about out of time. I wanted to read some of the kalam of Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan as it relates to that matter. But that's not what the zakat, that's not what's intended by fi sabilillah. What is intended by fi sabilillah is three different classes of individuals. One, the mujahidun, those that are fighting for the sake of Allah. And that zakat money could be given to that mujahid, or it could be used to buy weaponry for the mujahid. That's the first group of people that is for. The second group of people, as Abdullah ibn Umar, Imam al-Shawkani, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, he states that Abdullah ibn Umar, he stated that what enters into fi sabilillah are those that are going out to make hajj or umrah. That they likewise are entered into the category of fi sabilillah. For this reason, Imam Ahmed and Ishaq and others held this position. And then the third, as Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin, he mentions in his book, Fatawa fi Ahkam al-Zakat, he mentions that the ulama likewise state that the seeker of knowledge is also inclusive in fi sabilillah. That he also enters into this. And although, and Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin, when he's mentioning this, mashallah, he has some very beautiful speech pertaining to that. But he didn't mention the evidence of the ulama that state this. But we have a narration from the Prophet ﷺ, just like we have a narration of the Hujjaj entering it, because he referred to them as going out fi sabilillah. We have a narration as it relates to the seekers of knowledge. As the Prophet ﷺ stated, "Man ja'a masjidi hada lam ya'tihi illa li khayrin yata'allamuhu aw yu'allimuhu فهو بمنزلة المجاهد في سبيل الله." Right? That whoever comes to this masjid and he does not come to it except for some good that he wants to learn or teach, then he is on the level of the mujahid, meaning the one that is fighting fi sabilillah. Right? He is on that level. Right? So these are the three groups of individuals that fall into fi sabilillah. The zakat money is not to be spent on anyone outside of these three. As it relates to fi sabilillah, the statement of those who are going out for the sake of Allah. So that which the Ikhwan al-Muslimin add into this is nothing more than a changing of the deen. It's nothing more than a changing of the deen. And then the the seventh benefit is that containing this hadith is a prohibition for the person who collects the zakat from taking from the most valued of the people's wealth. Don't take the most valued of their wealth. Likewise, from the benefit of this hadith, there is a caution or attention being paid to the warning from all types of oppression. Because the Prophet ﷺ stated, وَاتَّقِي دَعْوَةَ الْمَظْلُومِ. A person should be concerned with this, regardless of how you oppress the person. Fear the supplication of the oppressed, for indeed there is not between it and Allah a veil. And Allah's benefit وَفِيهِ أَنْ يَبْدَأَ الدَّاعِي بِالْأَحَمَّ فَالْأَحَمَّ. And the last benefit contained that the Shaykh mentions is that the caller, he should begin with that which is most important. And everything in Islam is important. Islam is important. But there are some things that are more important than others. There are some things that are more important than others. Like I've witnessed people give a shahada to, I remember a brother gave shahada to a sister. And as soon as the sister accepted Islam, what's the first thing he makes binding upon her? Now you have to cover. That's not more important than her establishing the salah. And if you teach her the salah, you have to be teaching her the conditions in which the salah is accepted. And from them is settled awrah. From them is women and men covering their awrah, or their private parts. And so if the sisters, for instance, a sister accepts Islam, if they busy themselves or busy her with learning the salah, then they're teaching her how to cover properly for the salah. And inshallah, as long as the sisters, when she comes around and does forth and so on, and sees the sisters covered properly, not improperly like a lot of sisters do. Some sisters have a scarf and that's it. That's not, if they pray like that, their salah is not accepted. That's not covering properly. There's a way that Allah legislated that the sisters cover. He didn't just legislate that they cover and then He leaves it up to themselves to figure out how to cover. No, He legislated for them to cover, and He legislated for them how to cover. He defined it for them. Anyway, the point that I'm making is beginning with that which is most important. And the reality is we have to, when looking at this point, we have to keep in mind the principle النظر إلى أواقب الأمور, that the end result of one's statements or actions is what is examined or looked to. Because if you're trying to cram down all of the deen to a person in one night, what can be the end result of that? What could be the end result? You could consequently turn a person away. I literally witnessed a brother, one of the brothers gave another brother shahada. And the third person, after he witnessed the shahada, he walked up on the brother, and now you have to do this, and now you have to do that, and now you have to do this, and now you have to do that, and then you have to do this, and you have to do that. And he's mentioning a bunch of stuff that all are important because they're from the deen of Islam. But he didn't mention the salah. He didn't even mention to him that which was most obligatory upon this individual to learn and implement. Alright? And so we have to keep these points in mind, and all of these points that the Shaykh mentioned are all derived from this hadith. And with that, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. There was a question, right?
Yeah, it was conditions of Muhammad Rasulullah.
Which ones do you have, right?
I have affirming what he spoke was true about what he informed us of, obedience to his commands to stay away from prohibitions, worshiping according to Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, worship Allah according to Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
You have all four.
Oh, that's four?
That was the third one. Because I have it too. I have three.
What do you have?
Affirmation, obedience, and then there was a third one.
Staying away from prohibition is one?
It's the third one.
Okay, that's what it is.
Standing away from what he prohibited and having restraint from that.
Okay.
Having restraint as it relates to that.
Okay, I thought it was all.
No, it's two different ones.
Okay.
And all of them have their evidence in the Quran. Affirming what Allah, affirming what the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam informed, affirming to be the truth what the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam informed us of. What is the proof for this? The statement of Allah, he does not speak from his own accord or desires, and it is a revelation that's been revealed to him. The proof for obedience in that which he commands, and the third condition, avoiding that which he has prohibited, is in one ayah of Surah Al-Hashr. There's several ayahs in the Quran, but I'm going to pull one ayah from Surah Al-Hashr. وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ وَرَسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Whatever the messenger gives you, take it. Whatever he forbids you from, abstain from it. And then the proof as it relates to worshiping Allah by way of that which has been legislated upon the tongue of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's found in the hadith of Aisha, which is collected by both Imam al-Bukhari and Muslim, with two slightly different utterances or expressions, but the same meaning. The first of the expressions, مَنْ أَحْدَثَ فِي أَمْرِنَا هَذَا مَا لَيْسَ مِنْهُ فَهُوَ رَدٌّ. Whoever innovates into this affair of ours, that which is not from it, it is rejected. And then the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, مَنْ عَمِلَ عَمَلًا لَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ أَمْرُنَا فَهُوَ رَدٌّ. Whoever does an action that is not in accordance with our affair, then it is rejected. Rejected by who?
By Allah.
By Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, the one who accepts one's actions. What is intended by affair? Al-Islam. Whoever innovates into this affair of ours, this affair, Al-Islam. Alright? So these are the proofs for those four conditions. Any other questions?